From my home to yours, my friend, all the very, very best. May God bless you on this day. I want to talk with you for just a few moments about one of the toughest topics, and that is the topic of forgiveness. Forgiveness. That may be the last thing you want to be talking about, so I get it. I get it. Before you leave, post your prayer needs there in the comments section, and we'll pray for you, pray with you. Can you spare 7 or 8 minutes? If so, I'd like to talk to you about how God can help us forgive. Now, some people abandon the path of forgiveness because they find it so impossibly steep. So let's be realistic. Let's be realistic about forgiveness. Forgiveness does not pardon the offense. It does not excuse the misdeed. Forgiveness does not ignore it. Forgiveness is not necessarily reconciliation. A reestablished relationship with the transgressor is not essential. It's not always even possible. Even more, that phrase we banter about, forgive and forget, sets an unreachable standard. Painful memories are not like old clothing. They defy easy shedding. Forgiveness is simply the act of changing your attitude toward the offender. It's moving from a desire, from a posture to harm toward an openness to be at peace. I want to take a look at a time when Jesus forgave those around him. It's just the most beautiful story of grace. And the story includes a basin of water, a towel, 24 sweaty feet, and 12 disciples. I mean, as you might recognize, John chapter 13. Jesus, knowing the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God and was going to God, he arose from the supper and he laid aside his garments, and he took a towel and he girded himself. After that, he poured water into a basin, and he began to wash the disciples' feet. He began to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. I've wondered, how much time do you think this cleansing required? Supposing Jesus took 2 or 3 minutes with each disciple, it seems to me the act would have taken the better part of an hour. Keep in mind, Jesus is down to his final minutes with his followers. If his 3 years with them were measured by sand in an hourglass, only a few grains had yet to fall. And Jesus chose to use them in this silent sacrament of humility. Later that night, the disciples realized the enormity of this gesture. You recall what happened. They had pledged to stay with their master, but those pledges melted like wax in the heat of the Roman torches. And when the soldiers marched in the garden, the disciples ran out of the garden. Now, in my imagination, I envisioned them sprinting, running, until depleted of strength, they plopped to the ground. And they let their heads fall forward as they looked wearily at the dirt. And that's when they saw the feet that Jesus had just washed only minutes before. That's when they realized he had given them grace before they even knew they needed it. Jesus forgave his betrayers before the betrayal. He gave them grace. Now, hasn't he done the same for us? We've been wounded. Sure, we have been. We've been wounded deeply. But also we've been forgiven preemptively by Christ. Before we even knew we needed grace, we were offered it. Suppose I were to somehow come into possession of your sin history video. Every contrary act, every wayward thought, every reckless word. Would you want me to play it on a screen? By no means, no means. You'd beg me not to. And I would beg you not to show mine. I would beg you. Don't worry, don't worry. I don't have it But Jesus does. Jesus does. He's seen it. He's seen every backseat, backhanded moment of our lives, each one. And He has resolved, my grace is enough. My grace is enough. I can cleanse these people. I will wash away their betrayals. For that reason, we must make the upper room of mercy our home address. We let Him forgive us. And in turn, we take up the towel and at least attempt to forgive others. Jesus says this to the church. He says, now this is how we do it. Remember in that text, He said, if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have given you an example that you should do as I have done to you. Again, John 13. So let others bicker and fight. We don't. Let others always seek revenge. We don't. Let others keep a list of offenders. We don't. We take the towel. We fill the basin. We wash one another's feet. Now Jesus could do this. Why? Because He knew who He was. He was sent from God. And He knew where He was going. He was destined for heaven. And you, do you know who you are? Let me tell you, friend, you are the creation of a good God. You are made in His image. And you are destined to reign in an eternal kingdom. You are only heartbeats away from heaven. Only heartbeats away. Now, secure in who you are, can you do what Jesus did? Can you set aside the robe of rights and expectations and make the most courageous of moves? Can you wash feet? Let the author of forgiveness help you forgive others. You don't have to do this alone. God will help you. It's not an easy task. It's not. But Christ has given grace to us. Could we give grace to others? Think about it.